Padre Pio often spoke about souls who appeared to him in moments of deep prayer, seeking help, mercy, or simply acknowledgement. Among these encounters, one of the most haunting was the soul of a man who had abandoned his family, a man who walked away not because he was forced to, but because he chose a life of comfort over responsibility, pleasure over commitment, and freedom over the wounds he helped create. Padre Pio described how this soul first appeared during a quiet night of contemplation. The air around him shifted, becoming heavy, as if carrying the weight of a life filled with unfinished duties. Then, in the dim light of his cell, Padre Pio saw a figure standing at the threshold, restless, trembling, and unable to lift his gaze. His presence was not violent, but deeply sorrowful, as though the soul was held together by regret rather than substance. As Padre Pio looked closer, he understood the truth. This was a father who had once turned his back on his wife and children, leaving them to struggle alone. The marks of his decision were etched into his soul like scars, faint but undeniable. Padre Pio sensed not only the man's shame but the echo of the suffering he left behind. Every broken promise seemed to cling to him like a shadow. The man did not speak, yet his silence told the whole story. His soul carried the loneliness his family had endured, the tears his children had cried, and the weight of the responsibilities he had refused to bear. Padre Pio realized that the soul was seeking something he had never sought in life: understanding, forgiveness, and a path toward redemption. This vision marked the beginning of a painful revelation, one that showed Padre Pio how deeply abandonment wounds not only the living, but also the soul who causes it. When Padre Pio encountered the soul of the man who abandoned his family, the saint was struck not only by the man's sorrow but by the visible imprint of the suffering he caused. Unlike sins that are hidden within the heart, the sin of abandonment leaves a trail, an echo of pain that continues long after the moment of departure. And in the realm of the spirit, that echo becomes something unmistakably real. Padre Pio described how the man's soul carried shadows shaped like the people he had left behind. These were not literal figures, but impressions, spiritual wounds that reveal the consequences of his choices. The soul appeared dim, as if light could not fully reach it. Every part of him seemed weighed down by invisible burdens, the very burdens he once forced his family to carry alone. Padre Pio sensed the crying of the children the man never returned to. Their small voices, filled with confusion and longing, resonated through his soul like distant bells. Their pain had become part of him. The man's wife, who spent years trying to hold the home together, had poured tears that left deep grooves along the soul's being, marks of betrayal, struggle, and loneliness. What struck Padre Pio most was the imbalance. The man had created wounds in others that he himself never tended to. Now, in the spiritual realm, those wounds confronted him. The soul shook as though reliving each moment: birthdays missed, promises broken, needs ignored. Abandonment, Padre Pio realized, does not only break human hearts, it fractures the soul of the one who causes it. Through this vision, Padre Pio understood a profound truth. The responsibility we abandon in life becomes the sorrow we carry in eternity. Padre Pio described the soul of the man as standing in a place of profound realization, a moment when every truth he had avoided in life rose before him with undeniable clarity. During his lifetime, the man had convinced himself that walking away from his family was justified. He repeated excuses to quiet his conscience. They'll be fine without me. I need my freedom. I deserve a fresh start. But in death, all illusions fell away. There was no noise to distract him, no pride to shield him, and no worldly concerns to hide behind. Only truth remained. The moment his soul crossed the boundary between life and eternity, he saw the full weight of what he had done. It was not a dramatic punishment, not flames or fury, but something far more piercing, unmistakable understanding. Padre Pio said the man's regret did not come as a gentle whisper. It came violently, like a dam breaking after years of pressure. He saw the nights his children waited for him at the window, believing he might still return. He saw the silent suffering of his wife, trying to explain his absence without breaking their hearts. He saw birthdays where an empty chair became a painful reminder of promises he had shattered. Most of all, he realized that every choice he made without love had carved a wound in someone else. Regret overwhelmed him, not because God condemned him, but because he finally saw himself clearly. And clarity, in that moment, became agony. The soul cried out not for forgiveness, but for the years he wasted, for the responsibilities he fled, and for the love he never offered. Padre Pio understood this awakening as a divine mercy, for only truth can begin the path toward redemption, even when regret arrives too late to change the past. Padre Pio explained that the purification of the man's soul did not begin with fire or punishment, but with confrontation, a confrontation with the emotional destruction he had left behind. In the afterlife, the soul is shown not only what it did, but what its actions created in the hearts of others. For this man, every consequence of his abandonment appeared before him like living memories that carried weight, color, and pain. He saw his children growing up without guidance, their confusion turning into insecurity. He watched moments when they searched for a father figure in others because he had chosen not to be present. These scenes were not shown as accusations, but as reflections of truth he had avoided all his life. He saw the emotional exhaustion that tightened around his wife like chains, her struggle to raise the family alone, her nights spent crying silently so the children wouldn't hear, her dreams turning into survival instincts. Every tear she shed became a mark on his soul, not to condemn him, but to purify him. Purification, Padre Pio explained, is not torture, it is healing through truth. But healing can hurt. The man felt the weight of every moment he should have been present but wasn't. He felt the sting of every promise he broke. The absence he chose became the burden he now carried. This was not a punishment imposed by God. It was the natural spiritual consequence of living without responsibility. Souls who abandon their duties must relearn love, commitment, and sacrifice through a painful internal cleansing. The man's purification was long, not because God was harsh, but because the wounds he caused were deep. And every wound had to be acknowledged before peace could be offered. Would you like me to expand segment 5 into 250 words? Padre Pio shared this vision not to frighten people, but to awaken them. The soul of the man who abandoned his family teaches one powerful truth. Our responsibilities are not optional, they are sacred. When we walk away from those who depend on us, we do not just leave a place empty. We leave hearts wounded, futures reshaped, and burdens multiplied. Heaven takes these things seriously because love is the law of the soul and abandonment is the absence of love. Padre Pio emphasized that God does not condemn someone because they failed. He reaches the heart because people often refuse to face what their choices have done. The man's suffering in the afterlife did not come from divine anger, but from finally seeing truth without excuses. And that truth transformed him. The final lesson is this: conversion is possible at any moment if the soul chooses honesty. The man's long purification became meaningful because he accepted responsibility, something he never did on earth. Even souls who fall deeply can rise again if they seek mercy before it is too late. Padre Pio wants us to understand that every act of love heals, every act of duty strengthens the soul, and every moment of responsibility embraced becomes a step toward heaven. And for those who have neglected their duties, the door of mercy is still open right now, in this life before truth becomes impossible to avoid.